What's up, y'all? This is Sam the Crazy Man Vera. Today on Catch the Craze, I'll be talking to Michael Nunneley, and I'm hoping I pronounced it right. I had to Google it. With that said, we're going to be talking about comics and Kickstarters and more. So let's get it.
We are the only show for independents all around, giving you a platform to spread your word all over town. Catch the Craze is the place to promote to your fans with the Dreamer, Medina, and Sam the Crazy Man. Subscribe to our show and never miss an episode. It's time to get your mans, listen to us on the go. Updated every week, we never miss a day. Join the squad, come on in. It's time to catch the Craze. If you are an independent, catch the Craze. Making moves on your own, catch the Craze. On your grind in the streets, catch the Craze. Join the movement, catch the Craze.
Yeah, George, we did it again. Come on now. You know you want to do it. Catch the Craze. Welcome to Catch the Craze podcast. I'm your host with the most, Sam the Crazy Man Vera, and George is in Europe. So George is not going to be with us tonight because he will be on a 2-week vacation in Europe. So he's going to a wedding, then he's flying from there to Greece. He's going to have a good old time. So with that said, flying the ship solo tonight, we're going to be talking to an independent creator who does everything. I mean, he's the CEO. So, and you'll find out why. And his name is Michael Nunneley, and we're going to be talking about his Kickstarter, Dragon Girl Albino Warrior #1, coming up soon. Before we start talking to him, we're going to run down a few things. So, this episode, if we're talking in the past and present, is because it's pre-recorded. So, it'll be live. If you have any comments for our guests when this episode airs, please put it in chat, but there will be links directing you to his social media handles and all that other stuff. So if you haven't done so already, you know, when we grow, the indie community grows. Like, subscribe, share it with a friend, let the world know about Catch the Craze. We are the home of the independent creator. You know, launched in 2005. We have over 100,000 views, and the downloads on Podbean are pretty significant. So we're going to talk about a whole lot of stuff. And don't forget, every Thursday mornings, we have the Morning Brew with the Crazy Crew, where we take topics from the Craze in 10 or less on Mondays. And we chat it up on Thursday mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time with a cup of coffee. And basically, we take questions from the live chat, and we talk about interesting topics from trending things, pop culture, and whether it's film, movies, or just industry related advice in the independent world. Also, the Kickstarter has ended for There's an Alien in My Toilet. At the time that you're seeing this, the stuff should be at the printers or on its way to you, one of the two. So we'll figure that out based on when this airs. So thank you everybody who supported the campaign. The next campaign for There's an Alien in My Toilet will be October 1st. So give us some time. You should be getting your rewards in July. Late July, early August. And so give you time to absorb it, read it, enjoy it. And then in October, I'm actually launching the graphic novel. So I went 1, 2, and I'm going straight to the graphic novel with 5 issues in it. So why, you ask me? Because the goal is at the end of the year to have the graphic novel in stores. So I want There's an Alien in My Toilet in stores this year. So that's what we're doing. The channel keeps growing. We're at 609 subscribers. I think in the past week we had, at least in the past 10 days, I think 11 new subscribers to the channel. So thank you everybody who subscribed. A lot of you have private accounts, so I don't know who you are, so I can't actually thank you by name, but we do appreciate you tremendously. With that said, Wonder Duck, by George Medina should be on its way to you as well. So thank you everybody who supported that campaign as well. So there's so much to go over, but enough about that. Uh, now I want to talk to our guest who's sitting there anxiously in the waiting room. So we're gonna bring him in and we're gonna talk. Did I get your last name right?
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Nunneley. That's it.
Oh, good, good. I had to Google it.
Yeah, it's
But
it's Swedish, so the pronunciation is might be a little weird with the spelling and all that.
outstanding, outstanding. So, Michael, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience? Let them know who we are speaking to.
All right, my name is Michael Nunneley. I am the CEO and founder of Omen Comics, CEO and co-founder of Revelation Comics. I'm a podcaster at Omen Revelations Podcast,
And
and
doing it.
yeah, I've been making comics since 2018. About to put out the 12th comic.
Outstanding, outstanding. So, before we talk about the comics and all that stuff, let's go a little back in time and learn about you. So, where'd
Okay.
you grow up? Where'd you grow up? And what were you into as a kid?
I grew up, I guess, primarily in Chico, California. And so I grew up kind of in the shall we call it the rougher neighborhood there in Chico, California. It's an area called Chapman Town, and within that area.
Wow.
I was despite the rough surroundings I was surrounded by, I was just a geek. I loved watching my superhero shows and reading my comic books, and we used to play this little not necessarily D&D, but a sort of D&D adventure. I just loved hanging out and doing geek stuff, man. And yeah, just kind of evolved from there. Actually, one of the very first comics I ever wrote, I was 12 years old.
Wow. What was it?
It was called The Warrior. It was very derivative, based off of Casey Jones for the most part, from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I was a big TMNT fan, but I was 12. You got to expect some derivation
Absolutely, absolutely.
there.
So, you brought up an interesting point. You said, where you grew up was kind of challenging and rough. Was comics your escape?
Definitely was. I, but like I said, the world outside was a little harsh, and
Right,
comics let me be. I got to escape into a world where I wasn't the loser.
right,
I was
right.
actually. I'll tell you a little something. Those kids in the school that everybody picks on, even
Yes.
they picked on me.
Oh,
So we're talking comics were definitely my escape, man.
wow, wow. It's interesting because I was having that conversation. I said, bullies will never go away for whatever reason. And I know I grew up around bullies from elementary school. And I remember there was a point that I think that the turning point for me as a kid is when the bullies hurt my friends. And then
Uh,
I just went Braveheart, and I was just like, and I went rogue, and from that point on, I was like, wait, the bullies are really just big old skitty cats that are just using their bravado and size to intimidate. But once they were challenged, they ran, and I realized that. And so from that point on, me and my friends weren't bullied again. But I think all the way through sixth grade, it was a pain in the rear.
right, for sure. In Chapman Town, a lot of this was in the '90s too.
Mhm.
Gangs were a really big issue, so it wasn't necessarily individual bullies, but whole groups.
Oh yeah, that's even worse.
Yeah.
That's even worse. Yeah. So which was so what how did you get introduced to comics?
How did I get into comics? Well, it started, of course. I mean, I used to watch the old. I think it came out in, what was it, like '67 or '68? That animated Spider-Man cartoon, of course. And
Yes.
the Super Friends and Spider-Man and his amazing friends and the Hulk. And I watched all that stuff. I really loved it. But I went over. I was with my uncle. We went over to his friends one time, and his friend had a copy of Secret Wars that had just come out, the original.
Wow.
I think so. This was about '85,
Mhm.
and yeah, I was checking it out, and he thought it would be pretty cool to get me into comics, so he totally loaned it to me. And it was not long after that I bought my very first comic.
Wow. And what was that?
Thor, the mighty Thor. I was huge into mythology.
Yeah.
I really loved it. I was all into Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, and I just
Nice.
loved the whole fantasy thing, right? And I'm walking into the store, and I went there to get candy, and I actually saw on the spindle rack, I saw a comic that said the mighty Thor on it, and I'm thinking Thor from mythology, and I'm like,
Right.
there's a comic with Thor in it. Holy crap! I gotta buy that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. That's how it was about Conan. I used to get the Conan in the magazine size Conans back in the
Yeah.
days. Oh, they were awesome. So let's. What point you said at 12 years old you wrote your first book?
Yeah.
What inspired you to write?
What inspired me to write when I was 12 or today,
When you
like
were
more
12. I mean,
modern times?
that's that when you were 12. Because
Oh,
to write your first story at 12 years old, what was the inspiration behind that?
well, specifically, it was reading uh, the Chronicles of Narnia
Hmm.
and The Hobbit.
Hmm.
That made me really want to be a storyteller, and specifically the Spider-Man versus Wolverine comic. I
Hmm.
don't know if you remember that,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
after
I have
reading
them.
that, yeah, nice. So yeah, after reading that, I was like, wow, I really want to write comics specifically. That's what I want to do. So it was well, it started with prose. It was my love of reading comics that kind of led me in that direction.
Right. So that I mean they're very different disciplines. So
Very.
so did you have to do any research on how to format and write for comics at that age,
Oh,
or was it something later on down the road that you learned?
that wasn't really. We didn't have internet where we could just jump on and how do you
Right.
write a comic. So I didn't feel like I had any avenues to really do any research on it. All I had was my experience in reading them.
Right.
So I would fold my typewriter paper in half, and I would draw my little pictures on it and everything. But yeah, it was really just kind of a learn as you go thing. In fact, that's kind of my thing. I jump in the deep end and then teach myself how to swim.
Right. I mean, you just shocked half the listener base because they're like, "What do you mean you didn't have any internet?" Right? So, oh, like, "What do you mean? I was born with internet. What is he talking about?" Yeah, there was a time when it was just typewriters and telephones, and there were
Yeah.
no mobile phones. There was it was a different world back then. Um,
Yeah.
and it's only
For
when
sure.
you think about it, it's not that long ago.
It wasn't
Because
really. I mean,
right.
I like to say that anyway, being it makes me feel less old.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Right?
I remember, when you have to go to your rotary phone in the kitchen and call your friend. And I had this one friend who would call my house. I'd pick up the phone and say hello, and I was like, and it's my friend Herb. He was, "Hey Sam, where are you?" He called me right at my house, and
Right.
I hung up the phone, and he would call back. He goes, "Why'd you hang up?" I said, "You called my house and you're asking me where I'm at." So, but anyway, those were the days. You have to. Then you would say, "Let's meet up at this spot," and there was no
Right, right.
paging. Are you here? Yeah. Oh, the how times have changed.
Yeah, yeah.
So now let's talk about. You said that that first book at 12, was that a prose or a comic?
That was a comic. It's
Okay,
called
so
the.
then
Like I said, it was based I mean, a lot. I changed the situation and a few things about him, but it was basically Casey Jones in a different
right.
situation. But yeah, I called him the Warrior and everything, and yeah.
Nice. So,
Definitely a comic.
yeah. So, at what point did you realize, okay, when you were 12, you were inspired to write, and sometimes things are a phase we go through, right? So, when
For
did you
sure.
realize 100%, I want to be a writer?
Okay. Well, that was honestly. I tried writing prose a little bit in my 20s. I tried getting into writing comics a little bit in my 30s, but Honestly, it wasn't until I used to run an online comic magazine called the Chico Comics page, where we interviewed creators and we reviewed comics and all that kind of stuff. And well, I kind of used the information I got from there to kind of help me figure out, how to make comics. After, well, what do you do to make a comic? What do you do to make a comic? And I kind of gathered all my little information together, and I decided that I could do it. And so I got online and I was like, hey, I feel like I can write. I got a whole bunch of characters because I'd been creating characters for years, and a guy finally got a hold of me and he said, hey, I'd like you to write for me. And so I did. The idea was that we would run this Kickstarter afterwards, and everybody would get paid. That's a horrible idea for anybody listening. Don't do that. So I ended up writing 3 issues for this guy, and it turns out he wasn't serious at all. He wasn't planning on the Kickstarter. So I took what I did, I walked, and I said, you know what? I'm going to write my own comics in my own universe. I'm going to do this for myself. And that's when I got really serious about it. That was about 43, when I was 43.
Nice. Yeah. Outstanding. Outstanding. All right. Yeah, so now, what was your first independently produced, full, completed story?
That was Omen #1. But actually, that wasn't actually the one that was released first.
Wow.
There was a conflict. We started with one artist and it didn't work out. We had to switch to another artist. So while the first comic, Omen #1, was getting redrawn, we actually put out the second comic, White Druid of Michael Nero #1, and that ended up being our first published book, January 2019.
Wow. So talk about that, right? So you make a decision, you want to go full force. There's a lot of moving parts, right? You got to work with other people. What was that process like of vetting talent to work with, and then what was the communication like when you were actually going through the comic book development stages?
Oh wow. It was honestly that first year or so of trying to reach out to artists and other writers and stuff, and see if they want to work, like they'd come on and everything would be great up front. Everybody says, yeah, I'll do whatever, blah, blah, blah. Then they come on and then they're like, yeah, I'm not doing that. So, so there was a lot of that going on. But honestly, I ended up coming across a pretty good group. One of the people I interviewed at the Chico Comics page was an artist from Nigeria named Tosin Awasika. And I asked him if he wanted to come on and do the art for us. And he agreed to do that. We mostly communicate through like Facebook and stuff. Also, one of my reviewers at the Chico Comics page, Steve Sellers, I brought him on to do writing for a couple of my titles and stuff. Again, mostly just social media and stuff is how we communicate.
Right.
Found a letter, Guido Martinez. Eventually, we found the editor, Russ Pirozek, and we've stuck with that team ever since.
Nice. How long you guys been working together?
This team has been together since 2019.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah. Thanks.
Nice. So now you go through the growing pains, changing artists, moving parts, have to redraw things over again. Now you're ready to release it. Did you run a Kickstarter for that first one?
No, I did not. I didn't really know anything about Kickstarters, really. You know what? Come to think of it, I didn't run a Kickstarter for White Druid of Michael Nero #1, but when I did put out Omen #1, I did try to run a Kickstarter for that. But honestly, I knew nothing about Kickstarters.
Yeah.
And so it's really not a wonder that the Kickstarter failed. Because I mean, there was just a lot I didn't know about how you structure it and how you set it up and what all goes into it and the planning. And I was just a noob and didn't know anything. And
Right.
well, so that didn't really work out all that well. But yeah, that was the one.
Okay. All right. So you said that you independently published that book. Walk us through the process. What was that like?
Well, first, I tried pitching to a couple of publishers, but Omen number one, well, I think is decent. It was really my first real comic, and so I feel like I had a lot to learn still. Like I said, I kind of dive in the deep end and then teach myself how to swim, and so it was a little bit of a struggle, but what I decided to do was get the PDFs made, and I was just going to publish them digitally, and so I published them on a few different digital platforms, but ultimately I ended up on Global Comics and just on Amazon Kindle. We were on Comixology for a while, but as everybody knows, that kind of collapsed. So really, it was just digital publishing at first, and there was almost no money coming in as we were brand new, and like making a couple $100 at a signing here and there doesn't do a whole lot to pay for a comic that costs you a couple $1,000 just to draw.
Right. Yeah.
Right, and so that part was a real struggle, and honestly, we've just been kind of putting in what we've got to do to put out the next comic. We're just trying to build it slowly. We have honestly yet to make a profit. Not that money isn't coming in. I mean, there are sales and readers and fans and all of that, but we're still. I'm still shooting for that. I want to break even point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I understand. It's the independent creators that the biggest challenge is that monetizing and getting that return on your investment. It's a challenge because the main factor is distribution, right? and
Right.
um, and being able to not only that, and funding. So funding and distribution are the two critical elements that are required, and those are the biggest challenges in the community. So that's understandable. And so now you're getting ready to launch Dragon Girl Albino Warrior #1 on
Correct.
Kickstarter. And talk to us about what is Dragon Girl Albino Warrior.
Okay. All right. So Dragon Girl Albino Warrior #1 is an East meets West martial arts fantasy comic with superheroes and kaiju elements. The comic follows a warrior monk named Pai Long, who is worried that coming to America might cause him to lose his way. It's also about a 16-year-old girl named Danny Finney with a terminal case of muscular dystrophy that her parents are desperate to find a cure for. This story's ultimate goal is to show us that prophecy chooses its own path.
Wow, fantastic. So where did you come up with this concept? What was the inspiration behind it?
Okay. Well, I like a lot of kids that grew up in the 80s. I loved the Karate Kid. And so I particularly loved the relationship between Miyagi and Danielson.
Right.
They had that kind of father son master student kind of thing going there, and I just really appreciated that.
Right.
Also, I really think that the Karate Kid showed that there is a right way to teach martial arts and a wrong way to teach martial arts.
Right.
And so you combine that with later on in my 20s, I took Shaolin Kung Fu. It was part of I was kind of going on this MMA kick at the time, but I learned some principles about so I guess just basically Buddhist principles about the spiritual and philosophical side of martial arts, that
Right.
there's a lot more to it than just violence.
Right.
And anyway, I wanted to share that experience, that love I got from the Karate Kid and from the Buddhist principles and the Shaolin monks and all that. Right? I wanted to share all that, and so part of the Dragon Girl Albino Warrior story is that martial arts part. I wanted to show somebody that really exemplified that the perfect teacher, the perfect student, and I wanted to do an East meets West thing, kind of like with the Karate Kid too. I wanted to really bring that together and show the light of that. But also, there's just mythology in general. I mentioned I'm a huge mythology fan.
Right.
Um, Right. So I know that, like, while in the West, we kind of view dragons as, something a knight goes off and slays, but in the East, things are different. Especially in China, dragons are considered mystical. They impart wisdom.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're good. They're uh, what's the word I'm looking for? They're genuinely good deities, and I wanted to approach my dragons like that.
Right.
Um, yeah, and so the other thing that inspired it, I mentioned that Danny Finney has muscular dystrophy. Several years back, there was an Alterna comic where a guy had his son was born with Down syndrome,
Hmm.
and he actually wrote a comic where his son, basically with Down syndrome, became a superhero in the comic that he wrote, and I just thought that was so cool. I wanted to do something like that, with a disability. I wanted to take something like that, and let's make them superheroes like that. I thought that was a really cool idea. So it was kind of a mix of all of
Right.
that. Plus I have a love of science, and so there's a fair amount of that in there too.
Right. Okay. So now, Dragon Girl.
Yes.
Tell us about her.
Dragon Girl. Well, okay. Um, you Danny is your average 16-year-old geeky high school girl. Well, aside from her extremely rare case of MD confining her to a wheelchair, she loves her sci-fi TV show, War Star Fleet, and comic books, especially Warrior Queen, who she draws inspiration from. One of her favorite memories is staying up late with her friend Gretchen and watching old martial arts movies. Danny is also very close to her loving and supportive mother and father, Mary and James. Uh, her thing is kind of despite she too lives in a rough part of town like I did, and she's also poor like I was, and so this I through her I'm doing the empowering of the disability thing, but I'm also
Right.
doing the crawling out of the hole thing. Despite living in these situations and having this condition that she has to live with, she always sees things from the light. She chooses to see the light rather than the darkness, and that is why, while most of my books tend to be dark and maybe kind of horror influenced and stuff, Dragon Girl Albino Warrior is, as Galadriel would say, a light in dark places.
Nice. Fantastic. So who does she have to confront in the series?
Well,
What's her what
uh,
like there has to be a purpose to bringing her out.
yes, there is. There is I don't, I can't give too much away here,
Right. He's
but
like, Sam, stop
let,
asking questions.
let me I can say this. There is an ancient Chinese prophecy about the return of the great white dragon lord that is embodies life and light, and Pai Long, that warrior monk from China, and Danny Finney, that poor Irish girl from Kingdom City, um, are part of that prophecy. And even though they are on the most unlikely of paths
Right.
to cross, that's why this story proves that prophecy chooses its own path.
Right. Nice. Nice. I like how
Yes,
you word it. Because you're creating a lore, and you have those little, um you're hitting on the right, I guess, anecdotes that's really creates that spark of curiosity. Uh,
nice.
yes. So this first issue, how many pages is it?
40 plus
40
4 cover pages, obviously.
plus 4 cover pages. So why'd you go 40 instead of your traditional 24?
Because I can't write short stories for crap, man. I just can't. I tend to want to go off on stuff, and I think the shortest story I ever wrote was like 28 pages.
Right.
Right,
Nice.
most I average somewhere between 32 and 40 on average for my comics. Like I said, I just can't write a short one.
Nice. Nice. Right. So what can people expect from this first issue?
Well, you're going to get one of the biggest themes in Dragon Girl Albino Warrior is family, and you're going to pick that up both from Pai Long and his master Shifu, as well as from Danny and her mother and father James and Mary. Family is a very strong theme in this. The Danny and her parents are very close. This is a very loving and supportive family, and I really want that to stand out in there. And also, Pai and his master Shifu also have that very loving and supportive relationship, and I want to bring those two together and show that family can cross all kinds of bounds.
Outstanding, outstanding. So, when are you launching this official campaign?
The Kickstarter is going live August 15th, and I'll tell you why I'm waiting so long. The art is being done right now. In fact, it's being colored right now, and the comic book is going to be totally lettered before the campaign is even over. Very likely before the campaign even starts. Also, we're doing a really professional video for this one. We really wanted to bring our A game with this one, and so not only are we throwing everything in the kitchen sink at the Kickstarter itself, we wanted to put on a really nice presentation, and so we're having some. When we get the colored pages back, we're going to hand them over to Amy Fusco, and she's going to actually animate some of the pages and artwork and stuff, make that video for us. And anyway, all of that's going to take some time, and so that's why we're waiting until August 15th. We want to make sure we have enough time to get all that done.
Outstanding, outstanding. So talk about some of the things that people can expect as far as tiers. What do you have planned for this?
Okay. Let's see. We got it all. Each tier builds on the previous one, and of course, we start with the basic one of just the digital tier, right? But then we're also adding. We do a thing called a producer credit in the comic, and that's kind of my callback to. I think comics are a bridge between film and prose,
Right.
so the producer thing is kind of my callback to that. But if you back the project and we're successful, we're going to put your name in the comic listed as a producer in it. And
Nice.
so so the next tier up is that digital with the producer credit. And then, of course, we made cool Dragon Girl Albino Warrior stickers, 3x5 waterproof. We're gonna add that on there. There's obviously a printed copy of the standard cover. We have a variant cover called the Prophecy Edition, and that one's going to be released on a stretch goal if we make it to it. That's the last stretch goal. But we got lots of digital comics on this. We got comics from other people at Wicked Publishing. We got other Omen comics and other Revelation comics, including my most recent comic, the Viking horror comic Seder. That one's going to be on there too. And there's also, like I said, there's going to be cover art for everything, and there's even our digital trade, Omenverse Volume 1. It contains our first 4 comics on there.
And so, why 4 covers?
Why 4 covers? No, there's just the 2 covers.
Oh, okay, so there's 2. Okay, so you said it was 4. I thought you said
No, the trade, the Omenverse Volume 1,
right.
contains our first 4 comics.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Nice.
So
nice.
the idea is that if you pick this up, even though it's part of a shared universe, you're
Right.
going to get all the digital comics that went before it, plus some extra stuff, so you get all caught up on the story, and plus you get the Dragon Girl Albino Warrior, obviously. And then our stretch goals, we got together with a whole bunch of indie creators, and we got some really cool digital indie comics bundles coming for you.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. And so tell me about your artist.
My artist, Tosin, like I said, he lives in Nigeria, and his process is a little different because, well, I don't know if you know this, but Nigeria's power grid is just crap. I mean, it goes down all the time. The power is always going out. And so he's actually having to draw the stuff by hand and then scan them into the computer and then do the inking and the coloring and stuff.
Right.
And so, yeah, so I mean that process is a little different, but it does give him a unique style because the stuff is hand drawn on there. It does give it a little bit more of an authentic flavor, I think.
Right.
Plus, there is this, and well, he has gotten this is not to impugn his work in any way, shape, or form. When he first started, he had actually never drawn a white person before, and
Wow.
so in some of the cases, you can actually see some different features on some of the characters. It's almost a blend, and I think that gives our characters a unique visual element as well. He's also getting way better with his coloring, with his art all the time. Because he lives in Nigeria, we have to be very detailed and stuff in the scripts as far as what we want, because it's not like we can just call each other up and be like, hey, this is what I want you to do, right?
Right.
So we're pretty descriptive as far as what we want in each panel, but somehow, and I honestly don't know how he does this, but somehow he manages to improve on what we've written down there every single time. He finds a better way of laying it out, or just a nicer way of putting it together. And I mean, every time he sends us the art, I'm like, dude, you outdid yourself again. And it's just, I mean, he's always improving and stuff. It's just a real pleasure to work with him.
That's outstanding. Now, did you find him on social media? How did you connect?
I interviewed him. I talked about the Chico Comics page before.
Right.
I actually interviewed him on one of our creator spotlights on there.
Nice.
Yeah. No, not on the podcast. This was before the podcast. This was
Your online magazine?
Online magazine. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So I interviewed him and stuff, and he was kind of shy. But I mean, his talents is definitely there too. But yeah, just met him mostly through social media. Did the interview mostly through social media. That's basically our main contact, aside from the emails and stuff.
So who approached who about working together? Was it you approaching him and with the idea, or was it?
Yeah, I totally approached him. I was like, so I got this problem. I started comic working with this other artist, and I showed him the pages, and I was like, basically, I need you to do something like this, but in your style.
Right.
And I was, when I first started, I was dirt. I mean, dirt poor. So we're talking, I could afford to do 1 page a month when I first started. But he was willing to work with my budget and stuff, and we've kind of built a good rapport since then.
Well, that's outstanding. So what's your long game?
What's my long game? Well, ultimately, Omen Comics is going to have 6 total titles. There's Omen, White Druid of Michael Nero, Gallowsman, Guardians of a Lamb, Dragon Girl, Albino Warrior, and Dark Oracles. And each of those are going to have roughly 10 to 12 issues before a giant event called Tetra and Omega at the end of phase 1. We're talking about doing phase 2 beyond that, but right now we got somewhere around 70 or 80 comics planned.
Wow, that's a big undertaking.
Yeah. I'm really elaborate with my storytelling.
Right.
I got that from Tolkien. I get really into detail and stuff. And my poor Steve Sellers, the guy who writes me. Oh man, when I first brought him on to write, I must have given him, oh my God, at least 20 pages full of world building notes that I had put together. And
Wow.
so, that I got a really big story planned. And it's just going to take a while to tell it.
Right. What's the length of time you anticipate getting to that big crossover event?
Oh, it'll be years from now. Right now we're only being able to put out about 2 comics per year.
Right.
And we've also got an imprint label called Revelation Comics,
Mhm.
where we do side stories outside of the Omenverse.
Right.
And so we're trying to do one comic from Omen Comics, one comic from Revelation Comics per year, to build it up. And fortunately, that's about as fast as we can do it right now.
Right, right. No, it's understandable. I think it's what's it? Just like the tortoise in the hare, right? Slow and steady.
Right,
As you,
right.
and it's you got to work at the pace that makes the most sense for you. Um,
Yeah, yeah. Turtle power, as it were.
there you go. There you go. So, where can people reach you?
People, I'm on Twitter at Comics Omen. Also on Facebook at Omen Comics. Revelation Comics is on Twitter also
Right.
at Revelation Comic. They are on Facebook also at Revelation Comics with an X. I am on my personal account is Michael Nunneley, but take off the Y and it's with a 5, so it's MICHAELNUNNELE 5
Right.
because they wouldn't let me put the Y on there.
That's great.
But we're also on Patreon at Omen Comics, and that our podcast at Omen Revelations, and that's on Anchor, Spotify, pretty much wherever you're going to listen to a podcast.
Awesome. So now we're at that stage where I'm going to give you the screen and I want you to give your elevator pitch. Why should people sign up for the launch of Dragon Girl Albino Warrior and why should they pledge? So here you go.
All right. All right. You should definitely check out Dragon Girl Albino Warrior. This is something unique. There you usually don't have a martial arts fantasy combined with kaiju elements, and you don't typically have a really strong family element added into that. You know, this is about overcoming odds. This is about being a light in dark places. I think that not only will you get some awesome martial arts fun out of this, I think you're going to get some really cool, like heartfelt moments as well. There's a lot of action, but like I said, there's a lot of heart too. There's also some serious science in here too. When we're talking about how all this gets started and even the gods, we're talking about bringing back old gods into this. You know, like I don't know any other stories that are out there that have all these kinds of elements in them, and I think that's why you should check it out.
Outstanding. Outstanding. Well, thank you, Mike, for being on Catch the Craze. We wish you much success. Right now, there's 16 people who've signed up. The links will be in the summary. So if you want to sign up, just hit that link and go straight there. And if you want to reach out to Mike and his crew, the links will be also in the summary as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Again, thank you again for being on Catch the Craze. We wish you
And
all
thanks for
the best.
having me, man. Yeah.
Outstanding. Outstanding. So, we'll be talking. And again, you want to come down on, come back on, or you want to have your artist come on the show, let us know, and we can make it happen.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that. We'll definitely hit you up again.
You got it, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye. All right. So that was Mike Nunneley. And again, guys, check it out. Another indie creator, methodical. He has a process, well thought of story, built the universe, has a good team, home team, a base that he's working with. But you can see the reality of being an independent creator. There are challenges. There are challenges. There's financial challenges. There are logistic challenges. There are collaborative challenges. I mean, he went, the issues with the artists, and that's just a reality. And we all know that. We all work through those growing pains. But there's something about wanting to chase your dream, and sometimes, that fight is all you need is to keep fighting through it, right? And so while he has a really expansive, grandiose world that he's built, he also understands the reality of that it's going to take time to achieve his goal. So if there's any lesson in this is it doesn't matter what stage in life you're in. If your heart is telling you that there's something that you need to do, then do it. And don't chase the clock. Chase the story. Put your heart, your soul, your energy into the story, into your work, into your creativity. Don't worry about the clock. I think what happens is we chase the clock, we miss a few steps. We chase the clock, anxiety builds. We chase the clock, we get frustrated because we're not where we need to be, right? And so we don't have a choice in the when. We do have a choice in the how. So let me break that down, right? So you don't have a choice in when things will happen, when it'll pop off for you, when something will take off and give you that momentum to keep going forward. We do have a choice on the how we work, how we do it, and what we're putting into our process. So focus on your how, don't focus on the when. You know your why, you're doing it because you love it. And then eventually the universe will come full circle. Worst case scenario, you've accomplished something that you've always wanted to do. Even if it didn't get out there, you know what? You know you started something, you finished something, and you can stand tall with it. So with that said, that's another episode of Cast the Craze podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Give us a thumbs up if you do. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. Share it with a friend. You want to be a guest on Cast the Craze? It's as simple as just hitting us up. There's a link in the summary. Hit that link. It'll take you to the calendar where you can sign up and book yourself on the show. Just follow the instructions and make sure we get the collateral that we're asking for. And then we'll do our best to put the spotlight on you, because that's why we do what we do, is because of you. We want you to shine, and we want to be the light that shines on you. So I appreciate every single one of you. Fight the good fight. Stay focused. Stay positive. Be grateful. And with that said, I'm Sam the Crazy Man Vera. George Medina is not here. He's in Europe. I'm out.
It's just it's not.
Crazy. Acquiesce.
No, I was talking about my friend Acquiesce. I met say my name, right?
This is what you were thinking? Oh,
How you describe me? He said, I'm the
What? Catch the Craze. You're listening to Catch the Craze. You're listening to Catch the Craze. To Catch the Craze. You are listening to Catch the Craze. Catch the Craze. You're listening to Catch the Craze.
Candy girl.